Good evening. Is it working? You hear me well? You'll allow me to just roam through the stage. I love my freedom so much I can't be behind a podium, sorry. Well, thank you guys for having me. It is true, it's my first time in Brazil, and I have to say I'm having a fantastic time, and it's all thanks to all and each of you. So for that, thank you. You know, for me, the day has been quite emotional. It's always emotional for me when I listen and hear from freedom fighters, from people who want a better life for the rest of us. Because for me, people like that are my real heroes. So I am just gonna share my story with you guys. It's a story that some of you might see yourselves in, but it's my story for whatever it is worth. So I was born in Senegal, west coast of Africa, and right after I was done breastfeeding my parents, right around age 2, when I was age 2, my parents decided to do what so many African parents before them have done, and what so many African parents since them to this day are still doing. My parents made the decision to leave everything behind. They left their home, they left their family, they left me behind. They left their community, they left their country, they left their continent, they left everything behind in their quest for a better life for those of us that they have left back home. So yes, they left me behind so that they could give me a better life. And I think that really marked the rest of my life. So after a few years, my parents decided that their immigration to Europe had worked and it was going to be stable. So the decision was made that I would follow suit. I would go and be reunited with them. And so one day, I was myself too separated from my family, especially my grandmother, who has raised me. By then, I was around age 7. And I left my friends, I left my home, I left my land, I left everything myself as well behind. Needless to say, this was one of the most difficult times of my life, besides having lost my husband later as an adult. So, I go. But before I go, Grandma said, you know, you're about to go to this place where most people will not look like you, and where most of these people will not speak your language, and kids there are going to school. Because you have to know, I was refusing to go to school. I was just that kid. And my grandma said, leave her alone. She doesn't want to go to school, she doesn't go to school. I was literally a free-range kid, doing as I pleased every day. And then my grandma said, but you know, this place you're going to, even though the people don't necessarily look like you, meaning many of them are going to be, white-skinned people, it is still human skin, just a different color. They're people, you're a person too, that should not phase you out. And then she said, the language they're speaking is a language that humans speak. You're human, you're surely going to be able to speak that language as well. So don't let that phase you out either. And then she said, going to school is what little kids do, little humans do. You're a little human, you'll be just fine. And so I went to Germany with my grandma's words. And guess what? Everything grandma said was true. Most people were white. People were looking at me like this in the classroom, like, who is this gal? And I know what was so surprising to them was my skin color, probably. I think I was the only black kid in the school. But grandma had said, and it does not matter. So I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. And then grandma said the language. I did not understand a word of what these people were talking. But grandma said it too. She said, what's the languages humans speak you can? After 6 months, I was speaking a perfect German, no accent, flawless. And going to school, yeah, I never went to school. But grandma was right. After 6 months, I was the best student in my class. I've never been to school before. So that's just that. I think what grandma has done to me is instill a humongous sense of confidence, self-confidence in me. And there's literally nothing that I don't believe I can do if I set my mind to it. Literally nothing that I cannot do if that is what I want to do. So I continue this way. After a couple of years, family says, we're going to stay in Europe, so we better go to France because, you know, Senegal used to be a colony of France. For so many reasons, my family felt it would be better to do that. So we moved to France. So we pack up and we go. And there in France, after business school, I decided that France would be too small for my ambitions. I need to get the hell out. So I packed up and I left. Because, right, we're free, right? So that's what I did. I went to this place in Columbus, Indiana, a small town with more cows and churches than you have people. But I had a time of my life learning real English, because I learned later that it is British that I was learning when I was in France and not American. Those two are quite different. In any case, here I am. After 9 months, the family that I moved in with, you know, they sponsored me for my visa, everything. And after 9 months there, they said, Magatte, you have completely outgrown the work we had for you. We literally thought it would take you years to really get up to speed with things because they had a lot of work to do. But after 9 months, I was done with it. I was completely, I had done everything that they needed me to do. And they said, they had become almost like, my parents, Carol and Eldon Wentz. I always want to say their name because these people mean so much to me. And Carol said, you know, we could be selfish and keep you with us, or we could release you to the world so that you go and accomplish this destiny. We know you have a beautiful destiny. So her too was doing exactly what my grandma did with me. My grandma used to say, in your eyes, I can see the universe. So Carol in her own way was talking like that too. So it is when I packed up and I left. I went to California for 1 weekend, because I was engaged to a French man to be married to him. Everyone around me could see this man is no good for me. You know how it is, ladies, how sometimes you're with some guy and everybody knows this guy is no good for you, but you don't want to hear it? That was me. I was very engaged to be married in a few months and everything, and Carol's like, she knew not to tell me no, because you tell me no, I do the opposite. And so she said, I think you should go to California, to San Francisco, and check it out with this Emmanuel that you've been talking about for so long, and we've been friends for so long. So I'm like, I guess that's right. That sounds like a good idea. So I pack up, I go to San Francisco, and as they say, I left my heart in San Francisco. Came back, broke off the engagement. I'm like, now on my way out. So I went to San Francisco, and there, what I did was pretty risky for me, because I left the job, but I had my visa, my H-1B1 attached to, which means I'm going to have to find another job very quickly and have it also sponsored, otherwise I'll be kicked out of the USA. And I did it anyway. And after a couple weeks, I found a few jobs that were all willing to sponsor me. And there in Silicon Valley, I was living the dream life. The dream life. I was working for companies like Google and Netflix before they became household names. I got lost so many times going to the Netflix office, in this tiny office that they had in South San Jose. No one knew what Netflix would become. But there in Silicon Valley, I discovered the magic of just entrepreneurship. This magic of creating something out of nothing. And one day, there I was, driving down Big Sur, one of the most beautiful places in the world. And Lord knows I've traveled, and this is still one of my best places. And you had the ocean down below, you know, the Pacific Ocean. And the air was wonderful. I was listening, blasting music from Youssou N'Dour, my favorite singer from Senegal. Everything was going so well. I was so happy with myself. I was so full of, you know, just happiness, of gratitude for all the people who had helped me along the way. I was so proud of how far I had come. I was not even 25 years old yet, and I had just bought a home in one of the most expensive zip codes in America. Talking about the American dream, I was right to have left France. But there I was, having all of this joy, and all of a sudden my mood turned dark. As if somebody just put veils all around me. But you know, this is something that had happened to me my whole life. I don't talk about it, except for the people who know me. Whenever I'm that happy, whenever I'm so grateful to life for what life has given me, my mood would turn dark. And that day, though, it was special. Because usually when that happened, I knew what to do. And what I had to do was just to shove it under the rug. And do you know what it is? Do you know what exactly was going on that day? And what happened in those moments when I had the darkness? It was because anytime I felt good, anytime I felt grateful, then right next to it, the feeling of, but what about the people that I had left back home? What about the people that pack themselves into little fishermen's boats, trying to cross to Europe in search for a job so that they can provide a better life to their families back home? My parents, fortunately, did not have to migrate this way. They migrated in a normal way, so they didn't have to risk their lives. In those moments when the darkness came upon me, what is it? It's those people in the boat trying to cross, and then the boat tips over, and then right now you have thousands and thousands and thousands of my people laying at the bottom of the ocean serving as fish food. The stories are, in moments like that, I think about the people. Somebody thought it would be a good idea to hide into the landing gear of a plane so that they could emigrate for a better life. And then somewhere above England, a body falls. Or they open the cargo section of a plane and they see a frozen body because somebody thought it would be a good idea to hide in the cargo section of a plane, not knowing that once a plane gets that high, it gets so cold, you die. And when they think air route, sea route is too dangerous, then people take land route, still on their way to Europe for a job. And what happens to them? Most of the time they get trapped in Libya. And do you know what happens to us in Libya? In 2023, I get caught in Libya on my way to finding a better job in Europe. I'm being sold as a slave. You heard it right. It took for CNN to do a piece on this for people to believe what we have been saying, because I'm on some WhatsApp groups where on a regular basis we have to pay money to free some of these people so that they can go back home. Literally buy their freedom back. Would you not lose it if you were like me? You grew up with stories like that. And these are your friends, these are your family, these are people you know. And even if you didn't know them, if you have a heart, you should care. Well, maybe I care too much, because each time he would do that to me. Every time I felt good, I would feel right away that way. I never had peace, never. And what the coping method I developed was just throw it under the rug. Tell myself, nothing I can do about this. Me, little Magatte, there's nothing I can do about this. This is a problem that was there before I was born and probably will be there after I'm gone. Nothing I can do about this, so I better let it go. But you know what this, and so that day though, I could not let it go. And my body literally jerked. My hands jerked. The steering wheel, in this case, I almost landed down below in the ocean. I should not technically be here talking to you guys right now. But God maybe had other plans. And I stopped the car as soon as I could stop it. And I got out of it. And then I made a deal with God. I said, God, from here on, I want that for every breath that I take, that you put it to the service. I want to put it to the service of my continent. I want to see my continent get better in my lifetime. I don't know what to do, but you better show me because I'm showing up. And that was that. I got in the car, I drove away, and my life indeed would change. Big time. You know what they say? They say that the mind has an immeasurable ability to make sense of pretty much anything, including the absolute worst. You know how we are as humans. We can rationalize the worst, but the body only can do so much. The body at some point gives up. And I think that day, that's what happened. My body was no longer willing to follow what my mind was trying to justify. And I surrendered, because in moments like that, you have no choice but to surrender. So surrender, I did. So shortly after that, I went back home to Senegal, but at that point, it's been 4 years since I haven't gone back home. And I went back to show, because Manu and I, now we're together. This man I left to go to San Francisco for. We eventually got married. And he was an entrepreneur. And when we got to Senegal, I realized that this beverage that I grew up with, and I was telling him about, the hibiscus drink, the bissap, and he was like, I want to have it. But back home, people didn't want to drink this stuff. It turns out that, if you made it, you drink Western soda pop brands, like Fanta, Pepsi, Coca-Cola. That's what you drink. And then the people at the bottom of the pyramid, they drink knockoff brands of those brands. In the middle, my drink is squeezed out. In the middle, my culture is squeezed out. Because this drink is part of my cultural identity. It's the juice of Teranga. Teranga means hospitality. That is what the people of Senegal are known for. So my culture, out of a window. The women who are the ones who grow this hibiscus, losing their livelihood. Because now what they used to grow, no one needs anymore. And we've got a big problem. And Magatte now has a big problem. So I'm there, and I'm just like, this can't be happening. I was so pissed off. I was so mad at everything, at the world, at people, for having no respect for the indigenous richness that this drink was. Everything that's good in the world must come from outside. Anything that's about us is not good enough. We need to push it away and replace it with things from outside the world. I don't know if in Brazil you guys have this problem, which I call the complex of inferiority. This idea that everything good must be coming from the outside world. We have that problem, for sure. And to me, that's a problem. Because Grandma said, no one is better than us. So why are we behaving this way? So my body shut down, because if you haven't noticed by now, I'm a pretty passionate person. It works very well for me, and it also works against me. So for 3 days, my body shut down. I was really down. And my husband back then, Emmanuel, said, Magatte, this anger is energy, but it's negative energy. See if you can turn it around where it becomes positive energy, which means inspiration. Then you use it to fuel the solution. And that, coupled with my father always telling me, criticize by creating. That's my mantra. I was raised with this concept of criticize by creating. My father would say, do not come to me with your problems unless you thought of solutions. I don't need them to be right, but I just need to know that you're thinking about solutions. Because it's in that mindset that any solution can be born. My father did not tolerate people in victimhood mentality. Absolutely not. It's like, don't talk to me until you have something to also propose. So that meant, in this case, you've got a problem, your drink disappeared, you got a problem, you want it back? Okay, you bring it back. It was that simple, you bring it back. So I built a business, because to me, I always understood that brands are so powerful for how they change culture, for good or for bad. You take Coca-Cola, that little guy, Santa Claus, with his outfit and everything, a pure fabrication of Coca-Cola. Look at how everybody celebrates Christmas today around the world. A fabrication of Coca-Cola. Thank you very much. So we built the brand. The goal was to do reverse colonialism on my people. Meaning, I built this brand, take it to the US, the Americans drink it, then my people will be like, ooh, we hear the cool Americans are drinking this, so it must be cool. Well, you idiots, that's what you've had forever. But if that's what it takes, fine, I'll do it this way. So we did it that way. And it worked. It worked. Raised more than $32.5 million of funding. I had the who's who of the beverage industry on my board. Roger Enrico, former chairman of PepsiCo, and all the who's who's of the beverage world were on that board. So we definitely did it. And after Pepsi took over, it was time for me to move on, because I am not somebody who can operate when you bring in the professional managers and MBAs and all of that. I'm very much a startup girl. I like to get it all started. And when it becomes, I need to go. So I went on and all of that. But through that process, something happened. Because all the businesses that I built, I'm right now building my third business. They all have in common the fact that one is in America, a sister company in America, and the other sister company in Senegal, so Africa. And the first time I did that, I was so shocked. So shocked. Because here I was, over here, It took me back then, in 2003, it was the first one, almost 2 years to legally register my business. Over here, it took me almost only 20 minutes to register it legally. Over here, you're married to your employees for good or for bad. Over here, you have employment at will. Over here, it takes you, a few $1,000s to open a bank account. Over here, almost nothing, $20 maybe to open a bank account. Guys, I'm asking you, if you were me and you have to build a company, where would you build it? The place where you have years to legally register it, thousands of dollars to open a bank account, or the other country? Who would go for the country with $2,000 and all of that stuff? Who? Who would build the company there? Yeah, that's right. I see no hands. And there, my friends, is why we're poor. Because what I forgot to tell you is, when I first arrived in Germany, the thing that first came to my brain was, how come these people have this and we don't? I was talking about the paved roads, I was talking about the fully furnished grocery stores, and I was talking about when it's time for me to take a shower, 20 minutes, just like, I get in the shower, turn the knob, water comes down at the temperature that I want. Back home, it takes 45 minutes because my grandma has to get the charcoal stove going, then she puts a pot of water on it, then it boils, put it in the, what do you call it? English is only my fourth language, so bear with me. She had to put it in a... Who is following me here? You put it into a big what? Yes, bassinet or whatever. And then she puts some cold water, and then finally, one of my cousins pulls it to the shower area, and then there, finally, at last, after 45 minutes, I can finally take my shower. And here, mom says, Magatte, time for your shower. I'm like, I'm not getting butt naked in this cold weather. Where is the bucket of water? And she's like, oh, you silly, jump in. I was like, whoa, ooh, something is going on. And that little 7-year-old's question of how come they have this and we don't became an obsessive question of mine. I had to know. And over the years, the question became, why are some countries like mine poor while other countries are rich? I needed to know. And throughout the years, people tell me all types of things. Some people with a very straight face, to this day, I go to conferences where they have panels talking about the IQ theory. This theory according to which blacks and browns are simply not as smart as white people. This stuff is still out there, very much. So that's what I hear. I hear stuff like that. I hear people saying, oh, because of malnutrition. I hear people say, oh, lack of access to clean water. As a matter of fact, I think somebody this morning showed the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, 17 goals. For me, that's BS. Those goals are BS. Do you want me to tell you why? Because these are the goals that we have for 2035, and soon it's gonna be for 2050. Have you looked at those goals? By 2035, we're gonna make sure that almost everybody has access to clean water. By 2035, we're gonna make sure that everybody has access to nutritious foods. By 2030, we're gonna make sure that blah, 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 and blah. And by 2035, also they say, we're gonna get rid of poverty. Except I'm sitting right here, and I'm saying that one, poverty, we nix it, we nix almost all the other goals. Because all these other goals, that's right, what are they? Symptoms of poverty. So then why do you wanna waste my time focusing 80% of my energy and resources on fixing symptoms, simply putting Band-Aids, so that tomorrow I can come back and do the same thing all over again? Isn't that the definition of insanity? So we're insane, all of us, except I refuse to be part of that pot. Thank you very much. So poverty is at the root of so many of our problems, because if somebody is not poor, they can take care of their basic needs, clean water, all of that stuff. All of that gets taken care of. We're done. So here I am. I'm building this company, and I'm noticing the discrepancy of ease of doing business between these two places. And at first I thought, of course, it's because we're poor that it's so hard to do business. And conversely, it's because they're rich that it's so easy to do business. And that I had to come to turn upside down. Why? Because if poverty is our problem, what is the solution to poverty? What is the solution to poverty? I'm going to test you all. What is the solution to poverty? Try again. What is the solution to poverty? Now you wonder why we have this problem. No one in this room has told me, unless I didn't hear you and then you can make yourself known, the solution to poverty is prosperity. See, we miss that step. We miss that step. The solution to poverty is prosperity. Did you say it? You did it? You did it? Money. It was money? Money. Yeah, prosperity. Yes. He's right. One guy got it right. In a room of how many? Now you wonder why we have problems? Anyway. So, the solution to poverty is prosperity. How is prosperity built? Because we said it already. Poverty is the natural state of man. Poverty, how do we build prosperity? That's the question. Who and how builds prosperity? Who builds prosperity? I said who? Entrepreneurs, thank you so much. For people in this room who don't understand how that works, entrepreneur starts a business, hires people. Those people get an income. With that income, they go to take care of their needs. Kid is in school. Kid needs to go to school. They can pay the school fees. Kid is sick. They can pay for the doctor. You have access to clean water. You can buy. So you can take care of yourself. So you have these employees, pay them a salary, the income sustains them. Then you also need to buy from other businesses, so more businesses are built, and they also have employees, and everything happens. You are operating in a community, that community gets better off because of the business, and so on and so forth. And that whole phenomenon, you know, this virtuous cycle of things happening is what we call the economy. And the more entrepreneurs can get in, the more thriving and the more diverse and the more exciting this whole thing is. So the solution to poverty is prosperity. Who builds prosperity? Entrepreneurs. Then don't you think we should make it easy for entrepreneurs to start and run their businesses? I think we should. Except that when you look at Africa, Africa is the most over-regulated region in the world. Ranking after ranking, doing business index ranking of the World Bank, Fraser index, economic index freedom, all of them, countless of them, are saying what exactly I experience day in and day out doing business in Africa. It is like swimming through molasses to do business back home. And because of that, almost no one wants to build a business there. And the other people who build the business there, 97% of businesses in my country are in the informal sector. I'm sure you guys see that in Brazil as well. So, and it is during that process that finally, at last, little girl Magatte, it took her a couple decades, but finally she got her answer as to why her countries like hers were poor while others were rich. It was not, like they said, because her parents are stupid because they happen to be black. It was not, like they said, because supposedly we're malnourished. It was not, like they said, because supposedly we have, no access to education. Because even education, you know, we have millions of young people who come out of the, the universities, out of the couple hundred of universities we have on the continent, and systematically half of them can't find a job. So if it was all about education, please give me a break, and then don't bring me like, well, maybe they just don't have the right type of education. It doesn't matter. You come out, you may be the best accountant in the world, but if there's no accounting job, where do you go with your accounting degree and all of your fancy accounting skills? I ask you. So next time somebody talks to me about education, I'm like, education is great. We do need education, but do not make that the prerequisite for what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, a lot of entrepreneurs are school dropouts. So there, I had it. I fell on my knees. Nothing would ever be the same again. And then, of course, from there, my thing was to think about, first of all, how did we get here? Why are African nations in this situation? And that's when I learned that right around when most African nations were getting their so-called independences, it was at the heydays, we're talking about late 50s, early 60s. For those of you who know your history, you would know that during that time, we were at the height of the ideological battle, on one end represented by the West, practicing and representing freedom, and their economic system was capitalism, facing off with the Eastern Bloc, promoting various forms of statism. and they were looking for influence in the South for their ideas, because, you know, ideas look for influence. That's the only way ideas can win. And us Africans, we said back then, we were just coming out of colonialism. Africans said, well, the West is who colonized us. So whatever they're going for, we definitely are not going to go for that either. And that's how we threw the baby out with the bathwater. We said also no to capitalism, because the West was practicing capitalism. And when we did that, we completely failed to have understood our own history, because as it turns out, especially based on the work of people like Professor George Ayite, it is proven that before the white man ever set foot in Africa, yes, there were people in Africa, and what were they practicing? The free markets and free enterprise. So it is my birthright to be a capitalist. It is my birthright to be a free marketeer. It is my birthright to be a free enterprise person. There you got it. Socialism is colonialism. That crap was brought by the colonialists. It's some white dude from Germany who brought us that crap, and it's about time we dump it out. I'm sick and tired of being the useful idiot of a Marxist socialist and their rotten, corrupt ideologies that kill people. How many millions more of people are going to have to die for this to stop? So that's what happened. That's what happened, and that's how Africa, so sadly, at the beginning of their independences, most of these countries were ran by socialists and Marxist socialists and communists. And even the countries who say, oh, well, we know we're not socialists, like maybe Nigeria, well, except that you are not really a very big capitalist either, because you're still practicing the 5-year plan a la Soviet style. All over the continent, it's pretty much the same way. Then you want to know why we're poor? Do you want to know why? That's why. So as soon as I understood that, I'm like, God, what do we do now about providing African entrepreneurs on the ground with the best business environment that there is, with world-class business environment? And that's when I started setting my eyes on this concept of startup cities. Some people may call it charter cities. These are, and I go for cities. My idea, and we'll talk about it about Brazil. Because if you ask me, what should you do? I have a plan. But anyway, let's talk about the plan for my country first and my continent. So the startup cities, the best way to think about it is these are next generation special economic zones with their own law, their own governance when it comes to business, also with custom regulatory frameworks. Think about a piece of land. Think about this piece of land. This is your country. And here, and this whole country right now is running on the most rotten, inefficient software there is in the world. It's one of the most overregulated places in the world. We know Brazil is. There's another thing Brazil has that's not so good. You guys all run on civil law, which is something that you inherited from the Portuguese. Just like my country runs on civil law, which is something that we inherited from the French. Well, that is the most crappy system for entrepreneurs. There's a reason why the UK succeeds so much over there compared to the others, because they run on common law. Common law is so much better. For many reasons, those attorneys in here would know why. You're going to have to get rid of that at some point, I'm telling you. So, on this piece of land, you're running on the most inefficient operating software that are your rules and regulations, especially when it comes to business. I don't recommend to change the whole thing all at once, because we heard it. You have the entrenched interest. You have people who, you just don't change it all at once. Instead, what you do, you go for one little piece of land where ideally at first there's nobody, and here you say, we're going to run a different software. And the different software you're going to run is exactly that. New sets of rules, law, governance, and custom regulatory framework. And on here, you test, and then you watch talent and capital move over here from Brazil and from outside of the rest of the world. It works, all of a sudden, the rest of Brazil starts to demand it. Same thing. And each time you do it a little bit differently, maybe a bit better. And 25 some years later, you turn around, and Brazil is going to be more rich than Portugal, and probably one of the richest countries in the world. So that's what I've been working on. And when I started promoting these ideas to African leaders in Africa, less than a year ago, I had only one country that I was trying to convince. Right now I'm talking to 4, and we're about to announce who we're going to work with, because there's choice. See, these ideas can travel. And you know why I'm so bullish on the future of Africa? Because I don't need all 54 nations to say yes to this. I only need one leader in one country to say, yes, let's try it. They tried, we proved the concept, it's game over. It's game over. It's going to be game over even all the way here to Brazil, because people watch. You do it somewhere, they go for it. So that's what I'm working on now. And I'm just very excited about all of this. And I would like to take this opportunity to tell young people in this room, because I'm talking to you young people, and I'm talking to you women. I don't know for Brazil, but in Africa, young people and women are the power. No offense, man, we love you, but it is what it is. And in Africa, you know, it's simply a numbers game. Africa is the youngest continent in the world. Our average years is 19 years old, 19. Who is older than 19 here? If we're in Africa, there's almost no hands up. So of course, youth is power. So guys, though, and I know youth loves revolution. My challenge for you is gonna be, forget about the revolutionaries of yesteryears. Che Guevara, people like that. Yawn. Really? You wanna be a revolutionary today? The only revolution I want to see, are you going to have the guts to tell me that you believe in yourself? Because people like Che Guevara and what they're promoting, they promote it only for people who don't believe in yourself. When you tell me that you want the government to do everything for you, you're telling me that you don't believe in yourself. And you don't believe in yourself so bad that you need the government or somebody else to do it for you. Do you really think you should be then coming and telling me stuff? No, you're a loser, sorry. So you want revolution? You be a real revolutionary. You show me. Because this crap that you're going for right now, because I hear it, that's BS. That's the most cowardly way of trying to be a revolutionary. You want to be a revolutionary, you stand up for yourself. And you say, I don't want to wait for anyone to do anything for me. I am big enough to do it for myself, thank you very much, and I will do it better than anyone else can, because that's how it works. You want to be revolutionaries? You're going to have to show up, because there's a whole group of people out there who have absolutely no respect for what it is that you seem to love right now. Make a choice. But what I will leave you with now, guys, is these ideas. And now, do you believe that at some point I was on the left of the left? I was borderline a commie. I really was. That's how bad things were. And you know why I was there? Because I believed that those ideas were the best fighting chance that poor people had. My whole life, I had promised myself that if I had anything to do with it, no little girl would ever be separated from her grandmother again because of money. Because her parents had to go and make money somewhere. My grandmother is the woman I loved the most in this world. And I did not enjoy her as much as I could have because I had to go. I don't blame my parents for what they did. They did the best they could do for me. But what I blame now, do you know who I blame? I blame people who sold us such rotten ideology that we are today where we are. My continent is still the poorest in the world. That's who I blame. But blame is not enough. Now I know that those people are merchants of death and misery and poverty. So we have to change it. We have to change it. I don't even know what I want to say, but I think you know what I want to say. This crap, it's a disease. It is so good at making us feel that it is for us. It is not for us. It is not for humans. I don't know what it is for, but it is not for us, I'm telling you. allow it to last one day more. And again, I'm looking at you, young people, and I'm looking at you, women. Please let us be smart, because we are the ones who fall for this. We are. You'll do what you have to do, each one of you. But after today, you will have no right to say that you didn't know. I have all the sympathy in the world for people who don't know better. But after today, at the very minimum, what you owe me, because you owe me, I came here to speak to you when I could be going and doing many things. And I chose to come. Now what you owe me, because you heard my side of the story, is at the very minimum to go and compare notes with what else you've been told. And then make up your mind. Make up your mind. Thank you.
What a mission here, right? Congratulations, Magatte. What a very beautiful and amazing speech you brought for us tonight. And, well, everyone, please, another round of applause for Magatte. Take your time. Well, my first question here to warm up is, you mentioned a very beautiful moment in your life where it was like a turning point from a wealthy woman living in the United States to come back to your country and take a lot of risk and create a company. So obviously it was a very beautiful part of your speech tonight. As we can see here, you speak very well, so I would like to know if you could tell us a little about this second turning point from the entrepreneur in Senegal to also a speaker. Where and how and why did you find the inspiration as well to spread this word to us and everyone else in the world and advocate for freedom and the values that you brought for us?
Thank you. You know, me speaking now and having become a speaker and spending so much time in the world of ideas, it happened by accident. It really did. You know, what started my speaking career, if you can call it that way, that part of my life. Sorry, guys.
Take your time.
You have to understand, I think of my grandmother in moments like this. Because when she died, and I couldn't go to her funeral, because I made a promise to myself that, Grandma, I promise you, I'm going to fight. Whatever it is, I'm going to find it one day. I'm going to know why, and I'm going to make sure if that's all I could do. So that's all. That's who I'm thinking about right now. That's all. But that happened by accident because everybody by then knew. It was in 2009 or something like that. People knew about me because of the first company that I started. You know, Adina, my beverage company, was the first company of that stature that was started by an African and, you know, having so much success in the US. So people kind of knew me, and I always had this very much hard defense for my indigenous background. You know, we should not let go. We should fight for who we are. Our culture matters, all of that. So people knew me. They always knew that if you need to defend Africa, call Magatte. She has a big mouth, and she's going to go and she's going to fight for us. So that's what somebody did. Somebody sent me an email, and they said, Magatte, did you see this? And I looked at the attachment. I was like, are you kidding me? So basically, there was an article in there about Jeffrey Sachs. I'm sure some of you have heard about Jeffrey Sachs. He's a celebrity economist at NYU, New York University, NYU, New York University. And he had the ear of all the big-time celebrities, all the leaders of countries. Angelina Jolie listens to him, my president listens to him, everybody was listening to him. He was like the Wunderkind of economics. And he was doing these little experiments. There's no other way to say it. These little experiments where in a village, he's going to take a village side, and there he's going to dump what everybody needs, what people are going to need. So basically, they don't have to do anything for themselves. Everything is, it's going to be like almost like a mini centralized planning thing. And you know what really upset my friend and upset me and upset then everybody is they had a sign at the entry of the village. So they would allow buses with people in it, visitors like you and some other people, to come and visit. Like you're going to the zoo. And you know what the sign had? Don't feed the villagers. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you saying don't feed the monkeys? Because literally that's what it meant. You can only imagine how much I felt. And so, whoa, I wrote an article. It is still there. I can send it to you guys if you want. And you can only imagine, but that's pretty much what started the whole thing, because I really held their feet to the fire. And I was telling them how they had it completely wrong. And entrepreneurship is the way, blah, 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 blah. And in a way, that's kind of what started all of this. And as more people were asking me more questions and were more interested, I took it, it was something that I had to do. I took it upon my responsibility to educate myself even more. And you know how it is with a world of ideas. You start, you know where you start, but you never know when you're going to end. And the truth is, it never ends. So I've gone just down the deep rabbit hole. And in the process, I learned that I had to unlearn everything I thought I knew and to start anew. Right? And so that's pretty much how things went. It's that article that a friend of mine sent to me, and I saw that sign, and eventually I wrote an article about it. And for 3 weeks, my article was the most viewed article. If you Googled even the name Sachs and the Goldman Sachs, all of that, none of these came up. It was my article for 3 weeks, and people were asking to talk to me from everywhere. And yeah, that's how I started talking everywhere. And eventually I said, I need to become more serious about these ideas, really understand all of this. And eventually, before you know it, some people sometimes they're like, hello, Dr. Wade. I'm like, I'm not a doctor. I didn't do a PhD. I don't have a PhD. Well, whatever. Don't call me. I'm not none of that. But the truth is, and I also have to thank the man that I'm married to now, Michael Strong, who I believe is definitely one of the greatest intellectuals out there, if you ask me. And I have been privileged to not only be his life partner in life, in love, and all the things that matter, but also he's been my intellectual coach. And so I owe a lot to him.
Thank you. Well, my second question is, in Brazil, lately, I mean, probably starting in the 90s, we created some social programs to give dignity to people in very poor regions. In a first glance, it has been a very successful program to include poor people in our society. But what should be a temporary solution turned out to be a program that only grows, seems to grow every time. We have today states in Brazil where we have more people sustained by this government aid than by formal jobs. Connecting this to a question made by our audience, you have a similar situation in Africa with international aids, which is a very good and intentional way to try to help people to have inclusion in society and have some wealth and dignity, but also looks like to grow in the same path. So, in your opinion, how do we reverse this spiral?
We do exactly what it is that we're doing now. This is why people like you, the institute like yours, matters so much to me. Believe it or not, you're already doing it. At the end of the day, ideas matter. Everything we do comes from what it is that we believe or don't believe. It's that simple. And so for the longest time, believe it or not, for the longest time, that's why I can cut a slack to the Marxist socialists or even 60 years ago, because they didn't know any better for the most part. They really didn't. And I believe that for most of them, their hearts were in the right place. Not Karl Marx. That guy was a racist and it's proven by now. But I digress. I do believe that there are a lot of Marxist socialists out there who really wanted the right thing. As a matter of fact, it was the Marxist socialists who actually were rejecting racism when many people didn't see a problem with that. So I can understand the appeal of that thing. But for the longest time, those ideas were the dominant ideas. They still are, but not as much because of the work your organization has been doing, Atlas Network has been doing, many of your sponsors have been doing. We are getting there, guys. We're not going to win this overnight. We absolutely are not. But the fact that we're showing up every day is definitely part of the solution. So every single one of you at your own level, your only job, your only most simple job, you can then become as crazy and come join me with the Startup Cities. You can do that if you want, reach out. But at the most basic level, put these ideas out there, share them. Don't even tell, if you don't even know if you believe or don't believe them yet, it's fine. But just say, at the very minimum, you know, I heard about this other point of view. What do you make of it? Can we talk about it? And then go on, debate it. That's really the only job you have. So for me, don't think of, when a problem is big, don't think about like this big rocket science solution. Everything starts with a domino. Everything starts with a first step. In life, everything starts with a first step. Do not rob yourself of that, and first steps first. You are all doing it right now. Maybe it's a disappointing answer, but I just need you to continue doing what you're doing, and I need you to continue talking to other people about what you hear here and what you learn and what you read about. You're doing it already, and keep doing it more.
Thank you. The third question is, even in a country like the United States, founded on values like freedom of speech, private property, and economic freedom, we see socialist or interventionist ideas move forward, using the mask of social justice, or what some people call woke culture. I don't know if it's probably because it's easier to do virtual signaling like this, but my question is, why does this happen in a country like that, in a rich country as well, not only in poor countries like ours? How do we question it, and how do we confront it in a way to convince people?
So by now, because I've been asking that question for a long time, and I think by now where I have landed with that is that prosperity also brings complacency. That when you become prosperous, at some point you're just too comfortable. And for the longest time, I asked myself, do those two go together? Is it a feature or is it a bug? And I believe that by now it is a feature, because of the way our societies are built, you know, especially in the US, I would say. I think many of us have failed when it comes to academia. When you think about academia, the media, and Hollywood, those three have been raising our kids. Those three have been deciding what is culturally acceptable and what's culturally the norm. And we all know that those three have been notoriously anti-capitalist, anti all the values that the United States was built on. Once upon a, and this is very weird because it is, once upon a time, it was actually the left that was supposedly fighting for freedom and all of that. But you know, what I think happened to the left is that when it became clear, because for the longest time they had the monopoly of care, we care. They're the ones who supposedly cared about the Africans, about black people, about women, about the minorities and all that. So they had the monopoly of care, and they owned us almost as Africans and the global poor in general. But when it became clear that the solution to poverty was the free markets, they were gone. I will hold their feet to the fire, because they claimed it was about us when it was never about us. It was about using us to promote their ideologies. And whenever when they saw that the truth could no longer support their ideologies, instead of standing with us as they claimed they were, they left us. They clung to the ideology. So that's what I see. I think prosperity brings complacency. How do we stop making that mistake going forward? We cannot every other few decades be having this battle between these two ideologies, capitalism on one end and socialism, and which one is better. We cannot continue having these battles. So I believe we failed at the education level, and education, academia, and media, they all go together. And I believe that it's basically academia that starts that whole circus. Academia decides what's right, then the media piles onto it, and because Hollywood is such cowards, they have to go with whatever they think is the norm, then that's how you have it, and then we have movies like Avatar. Have you guys noticed that Hollywood has not one movie that celebrates entrepreneurs or celebrates business people? Have you noticed? Have you noticed that how Avatar is all about, see these cute little indigenous people, and that's supposed to be me, and that's supposed to be you, us, the cute indigenous people, and we were just living nice, subsistence farming, only taking from the land what we supposedly need, and blah, 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 and all of a sudden you have these big corporations that are so hungry for natural resources, and they're bad people, and they're gonna come and kill all the indigenous people so they can steal the resources. Do you think when your kids are watching this thing that this is not leaving an imprint? Do you really not think that this has an effect? But we have let that go forever. And you don't even know what's been taught to your kids in school. You don't. So while we, the doers, the entrepreneurs have been building and creating wealth and then turning around and giving money to Harvard because Harvard was an entrepreneur who made money and gave money to Harvard. Today, Harvard has the biggest endowment in the world. The endowment of Harvard is bigger than some African nations' national budgets, just to tell you. All of that came from one man who gave so much money and started this whole process. So we, the doers, are out there working really hard and sustaining the rest of society, and the money goes then to some of these professors, so many of them, still guilty of envy because they still live in a world where they believe that the intellectuals should be higher up than the doers, dirty doers. That's what we have done, but it's not too late. We take it back. In the US, I know the school choice movement has been amazing. Parents don't want people telling their kids all of this nonsense anymore, and they are fighting back, meaning that new schools are being created. Tons of different schools are being created. We have new movie studios being created to counter the nonsense that Hollywood is giving us, that Disney is giving us. If you want to check out Angel Studios. So people everywhere are fighting back. It's not over for us. We were sleeping. But it's not over. Our eyes are wide open. We know now where the enemy has struck us, and we are fighting back. So you do the same here. I say, this is the time to stand up and to keep fighting. We have alternative means of doing it. So the answer to your question is, I believe prosperity, if not looked after, breeds complacency. You have these kids who come up, they don't even know how prosperity is built. And we leave them in the hands of the wrong people, whether it's the books they read or whatever. And then voila, you turn around, your kid hates you because you're an entrepreneur. But the way we stop that is we take it all back. And we are taking it back. And I believe what's happening in the US right now of people fighting back is probably going to get all the way here in Brazil. So it's going to be a little bit nastier before things get better. So I'm optimistic in the long term, but pessimist in the short term. But we will get there. And the revolution, that's a real revolution, is en marche.
We just ran out of time. We still had a lot of questions from our audience, so people was really excited with your speech here. So thank you again, everyone. One last time, one round of applause for Magatte.